Hello, everybody. We have the lovely Kinzi, and I'm really excited for the chat today. You would have seen the before and afters with Kinzi, and she has been on a long journey with her skin. So she was, just to kind of give a little recap of everything. So she had tried allergy shots, which worked for her in the past. So that was kind of her go-to, like this is what's going to help because it helped when she was a child. Then on Dupixent, she had done allergy, food sensitivity testing, been to like multiple nurses, and then she really hit a rock bottom when one of the immunologists had said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. Like this is just life," which is hard, right? When you're covered in rashes, and especially to the point where Kinzi was, because she's also a teacher. So it is really hard when you have rashes on your face, and as beautiful as kids are, they don't have a filter and can, they point out the obvious things. So you can imagine how that can affect our confidence with anybody, right? So Kinzi has a really beautiful story of her journey with her skin. So welcome, Kinzi, and thank you for sharing. I'm really excited to have you here today.
Hello.
So to get started, it's always good just to kind of set a base and just explain what was your journey before you started your proper eczema healing journey.
Yeah. So I had eczema, allergies, asthma as a child, that classic like triad or whatever they call it. And as a child, I did allergy shots, I had breathing treatments for my asthma, all that stuff. And then I kind of like grew out of it. As a teenager and a young adult, I would have just like minor blips here and there of eczema. Little steroid cream would take care of it. So then about 3 years ago, it's probably been 4 now. I had no problems with my first pregnancy. My second pregnancy, my eczema came back, and I remember it being really bad, like on my arms, on the insides of my arms. And then around that same time, my husband got a new job, so we had a 4-month-old baby and a 2-year-old. Moved to a new town, started new jobs, renovated a house. The day before I gave birth to my second child, my grandmother passed away. Then 2 weeks later, my grandpa passed away. And so we just had like a lot of stuff going on. And we actually did move back to my hometown. So I moved back around people that I knew, but I still was having a hard time with it. I don't like change. And so it should have been easy, but it wasn't. So then we got here and to my hometown, and my allergies started to get worse. So I was taking allergy pills every day, which really I've almost always taken a daily antihistamine. And then when we moved back, I was taking like one in the morning. Somebody told me, oh, take one in the morning, take one in the evening. The nasal sprays, like Flonase and all those. So my allergies were just pretty much unbearable. And then with my third pregnancy was when the eczema started like around my mouth and my eyes a little bit. Um, while I was pregnant, my OB was just like, oh, you know, we can't really do much for you. I did get to a dermatologist she did do a little bit for me. I thought, oh, it'll get better, after I have the baby, and it did not. I'd been to regular doctors. I went to functional medicine. I had blood work drawn. Not a whole lot of stuff on my blood work came back. Then I decided I think I saw you on Facebook maybe somehow. I'm sure I was researching eczema and then you started popping up too. And, but I decided to go to an allergist to get allergy tested, which I knew I was allergic to animals, grass, pollen, dust, mold, like everything. But so did my allergy test, and that was like $500. So I had talked with you, found out what the program cost. And then I said, well, I've already done this allergy testing. I'm going to see if the allergy shots, that's going to be my path. So I did allergy shots, and the allergy shots, my face, all around my eyes, my mouth, my face was just red, and it was on my cheeks. And so it just continued to get worse. And then I thought, oh, well, I think it might be my allergy shots, doing that. I had my food sensitivities done around that time too. Um, And then about a year ago, I think, was when I went to a new dermatologist, and in the office, she went ahead and started me on Dupixent. So I quit the allergy shots. We did the Dupixent. And while I was off allergy shots, my skin got better. And I was like, oh, yay, magic, cool. And then we decided, okay, we'll start the allergy shots back up, because I still, in my mind, I thought I got to get my allergy shots. That'll solve everything. And so in August of last year, I started my allergy shots back up, and it immediately, all my eczema came back, still taking the Dupixent regularly. And that's something that, like, as you take, it's supposed to get better. As you have it in your system. And it wasn't working. And so that's when I contacted you again and started the program. Was in like September, I think. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting at the beginning because like we talk about when was that hasn't been well since moment, right? And so at our first conversation, it was the pregnancy. And you just said you thought it was a third. But then when we kind of looped it back and you said when we did all of the investigations and you were filling out all of the worksheets, like, oh, we pinpointed, we're like, there's actually a lot happening. And so this is where that brain skin connection came, kind of kicked in. It's like, oh, you had all of these levels of stress on your body, plus also having a newborn, also pregnant, grandparents passing one after the other, changing locations, which was also hard on your system as well. So that kind of painted a really big picture that, yeah, there's a lot of life changes, but your nervous system, there's a lot of dysregulation. And so, yeah, pinpointed that was a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely could like go back to that point in time, and that was when I started to feel really unhappy too, like just because all those changes had happened and I was starting to be kind of negative.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was kind of when it happened too. Like I kind of got that bad attitude, I guess, about everything that had happened too. So
Yeah. And I mean, that's like totally natural. And it's actually really common with eczema because I'm sure everybody can relate that when you're in the depths of it and dealing with life and then, also your skin, you can get into some dark places and you can get in these like, really dark loops in your head, like, why is it happening? And it's just like, yeah, it's very, very common. And then, yeah, you had said that hasn't been, or that hitting rock bottom point was I'm going to invest in doing the allergy shots. This has worked for me in the past. Now all of a sudden doesn't work. And then the immunologist is like, sorry, there's nothing we can do. You just have to live with this. Rashes all over your face.
yes.
Yeah.
That was like the worst. That was the worst. It was just like going in and, I asked, okay, I know when you do your allergy shots, everything gets worse before it gets better. They told me that up front. You're going to feel terrible for 6 months, then you'll start to feel better. So I was at like, 3 or 4 months when my eczema just got terrible. And I asked her, if I stick it out, is it going to get better? Like, do I just have to make it a couple more months? Cause I can do that, but I can't do this if it's never going to get better. I don't know. That's what she just kept saying. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. And I was like, okay, great. That was
yeah, it's like you don't know, but then what happens after? Like, what's the next steps after that?
For 3 years, is this gonna, because it's like 3 to 5 years. I don't know. That was a really tough conversation, and to walk out of a doctor's office feeling like, well, this is my life. I'm 34 and I'm just gonna look like this forever, I guess.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
And it's hard hearing that from the people, well, the people that we hold on a pedestal, right? That are supposed to fix our health. And again, I don't have anything against conventional medicine. It's just they don't have the tools and obviously aren't thinking of the body as a whole. But hearing that from this person that in your mind is supposed to give you the solutions would be really hard. So I can imagine how.
Supposed to be the specialist with what I'm
doing.
It's like, oh, lie to me, maybe. I don't know. Like, make me feel better. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's really I guess, the gap with conventional medicine, because they're there to diagnose disease and treat it, and they're trained to use medications. And, we've all used topical steroids, and for some people it doesn't work, but for most people, like, it's a pretty quick fix, right? And so that shows us that, okay, there's a level of inflammation in the body. How do we need to fix it? And then in the past for you, when you use the allergy shots, okay, so you sensitize yourself to the allergens, the pollens, the grass, all of that, and it worked. But now what was happening is that you were in such an inflamed state, and you had this like level of inflammation that it didn't have that same effect anymore, which can be really hard mentally when you think that that's the only solution. And then you're on Dupixent, so you're taking the injections every couple of weeks as well. You're like, I'm literally doing everything that they're telling me to do, and what's going on.
Like I never thought I would be giving myself a shot in my own home.
Yeah.
Like, or like planning, oh, we have to be out of town. What time should I take it early? Do I take it with me and take it while we're there?
Yeah.
It was crazy how many medications I felt like I was on, because I was doing, my asthma came back during my pregnancy, and I was doing breathing treatments. I was on Singulair and Zyrtec, and yeah, it was just a lot. It was a lot of medications, and that was one of my goals when I started the program, was that I wanted to be off all of my, or as much as I could. If I didn't need to take them, I didn't want to have to take them. So
Yeah.
I am almost off all of them. I still take Zyrtec, and I'm going off of the Dupixent. So that's been something that I'm able to do, because I don't notice a change with it. And so I didn't know how to stop it, or like, I had to go with my doctor on that. And so I think I'm stopping it in a month or so, because I was going to wait on school to be out, because I might have a little bit of a rebound. But I'm glad to not be doing those anymore soon. So
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's like because we spoke about that when you first started. Like, oh, do I have to come off my medication? So there are people that go through the program that are just tapering off of either their steroids or Dupixent. And so when you can kind of zoom out and look at the big picture, so it's like, okay, think of that body as a bucket, as your flare up bucket. And if you can reduce some of that inflammation, right? And it just makes sense, right? If all of these medications are blocking an inflammatory response, the Dupixent, the topical steroids, the antihistamines, they're all blocking inflammation. So when you can understand that, okay, well, let's get to the root cause. What's causing that fire of inflammation? Then when you transition off of them, you're not going to have as great of a response.
mhm.
So like that just totally makes sense. So it's pretty cool that you'll be able to start tapering off, expand your
Yeah,
time between shots. And it's the same thing with topical steroids as well.
yeah. And I haven't used topical steroids like maybe like a month into the program,
Yeah.
and I thought I had TSW for a second, and
Yeah. We had that
that was
conversation.
I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. But that ended up not being the case for me. And
Yeah.
but I haven't used steroid creams or anything in pretty much since I started the program. So
Yeah. That's awesome. So what was the um, biggest shift when you started seeing your rashes on your face go down? What was that biggest change?
um at first I think it was the brain skin connection, and just realizing how I feel like I was always running on overdrive. I just cramming everything into the day, no time for me. Um, and so that was a really big thing for me. Like I started meditating and doing all those things, and I immediately, I think I lost almost 20 pounds in like a month and a half, which was good, because I had just had a baby, and I was very overweight. Um, compared to what I normally am. And so it was just like, I don't know if it was like my stress level went down, and then I was able to lose weight, because I'd been trying to lose weight. I'd been eating healthy. So that was a big thing for me, I feel like, was that brain skin connection, and just seeing how completely stressed out I was, how miserable I was,
Yeah.
just very unhappy all the time,
Yeah.
and starting to change that way that you think. And I, even like over the last like month and a half, 2 months, I don't know what happened, but I just kind of got in a funk again. And
Mm.
about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was like, okay, I got to get out of this funk. And so I hadn't been meditating as much, prior to all that. We'd been on vacation, and I kind of gotten out of my routine, I think. And so I've really tried to, I've been doing yoga again and trying to perk myself back up.
Yeah, and like that's the whole aim of the program. So you know what works and you have that blueprint of what worked for you. And it's different for everybody, right? There's all these different things you can try, but you had that blueprint of, okay, if I do these things, if I move my body with yoga, if I meditate, do my me time, then I can see that shift. And you could, for you, you're very, I'd always applaud you in the group for being very introspective, and you'd reflect really well. Like, everybody's going to get stressed, but then you would take that second and be like, okay, well, what's going on and what can I do? You're very good at doing that, which is the outcome. And then where you're like, now when you're past the program, it's like, okay, I can go back to that blueprint. And when I'm feeling that way, because there's always going to be periods where you're going to feel
Right.
overwhelmed or get into a funk, but you're like, okay, this is what I need to do. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to touch on as well is that you had gotten the food sensitivity test. So this is quite common. I mean, this is a journey that I did too. I was just like, what's happening in my body? I'll pay for the test, whatever it is, and then just avoid the foods. So whenever I hear that, when you have the IgG, food sensitivities, and like, well, we need to see what's actually happening in the body, and in the gut specifically. So that's what led us. And you had been removing those foods and you were eating healthy, but still taking Dupixent, doing all these things, but still covered in rashes, and nothing was really shifting. So that's when we went to the food sensitivities and looking at the different types of food chemicals. And that's when, by looking at food, and that's not the case for everybody, but especially for the facial rashes and your presentation and your history, that was a big piece of the puzzle. Yeah. So what was that like for you?
Well, I did the food sensitivities, and I cut everything on my list. I cut it all out, and that was in March of last year. And I remember it was pork, it was beef, green beans, peas. It was a lot of healthy food and food that I ate a lot. And I mean, I didn't eat one little pea. I didn't take a bite of beef, and that was from March until August, and probably even longer than that. And nothing seemed to get better. And so then in the program you suggested, and I still can't say the word very well, the salicylites. Is it salicylites?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like,
Okay, that was something that you thought maybe was an issue for me, and so we started cutting out those foods. Well, that I just saw like a huge change,
mm,
because I was like peeling my apples, peeling my potatoes. I wasn't using seasoning, and I'd done the gut healing protocol or whatever. And you said, "Oh, I think you can put back in, your food sensitivities that you've been cutting out." And so I started eating pork and beef and green beans and peas, and I had absolutely no reaction to any of them. But
mhm.
then I don't peel a potato, and boom. Or I use, herbs or whatever and spices, and my skin would flare really bad. And so it was just amazing to me what the problem actually was, because I went to the dermatologist, and she asked me to do a food diary, and she goes, "Oh wow, you're good. You're really good. Like, wow, you eat really healthy." And I'm like, "Yes, I do. Like, I don't eat dairy, I don't eat gluten, I'd cut all those things."
Yeah.
And she was just like shocked. And I'm like, "Yeah, why do I look like this still?" Like,
Yeah.
why did I do
Yeah.
all these things and I still look like this? So
Yeah.
it was so much, that was the issue when I cut out
Mhm.
the salicylites. And then um I went back to, I'm trying to remember, I started trying to find like my limits. And so you'd say, "Oh, okay, try blueberries." So I was like a newborn baby trying to see what foods I reacted to or whatever, like 3 days at a time. And so, I was able to start eating some things again without having a reaction, or I was just able to avoid everything and have clear skin if I wanted to, if we had something important we were going to do and I wanted to have clear skin. So I felt more in control. That was nice to actually know what was causing it, because for so long it was just like I have no idea. I think it's my allergies. They tell me it's these foods, and then I cut the foods and I still get a flare. So
Mm.
it was just nice to finally have a definite cause and to know, like, to be back in control of my life a little bit.
Yeah. And it's like doing the low salicylate, anybody who's done it before, I went on that journey too very hard. Whoever, it is very restrictive and there can be a lot of food anxiety, but it is helpful when you do get a bit of relief. So you do have to work through a lot of that food anxiety. And then also, right, I'm testing this food. So I know, and I'm finding my limits, and I'm being okay if you do get a little flare. But if you do have, when you do have that baseline and you know how to get your flares down, and then you can really pulse that exactly like you said. If I have an event, well, and I don't want to get a flare, then I just arrange it around that. So yeah, and it's doing like a full low salicylate is hard, but when you're in that extreme state and you ticked all the boxes for having that sensitivity. So for anybody listening who has like chronic eczema, not everybody has to do this. So you do, there are specific symptoms and like the history of, okay, you qualify for this. But yeah, it is, like you said, it was like what we did is add food back in and then start challenging. And yeah, you just said that you've been eating all the foods.
Yeah,
Yay.
I'm pretty much eating whatever I want, good and bad. Trying to stay more on the, the good side of things, but like I ate pizza on vacation. We went skiing and the only place to eat on the mountain was a pizza place. And so I ate some pizza and did not have any major issue. So that was exciting. And then I've been seasoning my food again. And for the longest time, like my mom would always have me something different if we went to eat at her house. Everybody would have, their meat choice, and then this one would be mine because it had nothing on it. It was plain. And she goes, the other day she said, well, I can just make whatever I want now, right? And I said, yep, you can just put whatever you want on it. And I'm still kind of leery of it, but I just start telling myself like it'll be okay. You're not gonna have a flare. I don't know. I try to talk myself out of it. Where before I think I talked myself into them, like this is gonna be bad. Where now I'm like it's gonna be okay. If it flares, it flares. I know how to, I know what to eat. To help my skin get better. It's not, it's not 100% where I want to be yet, but I had a picture pop up on my timeline on my Facebook or whatever from a year ago, and my whole face was red and swollen, and so it's like I've come a long ways. So I have to remember that too.
And that's something that we had spoken about a lot of times, is that anchor in on where you've come.
Yeah.
Because it's, especially when you go through a period of having good skin. And if you're just restricting foods and you're just hiding from your allergens or your sensitivities, then whenever you start eating the foods or going outside, if you get it, you will get another flare. So you really have to be doing the work healing. And then also if you do get a flare, it's like, okay, I have the control and I know how to get back to down to baseline. So before you went on holidays, you're just like, okay, I'm trying not to get stressed. Does anybody have like any snack ideas? And like we were just talking about, well, if you go on holidays, like the point of this is to enjoy yourself. So not to stress as much as possible about food and getting a flare up. Because if you do, that's okay, right? You can come home and you can just go back to basics, get it back down again, and then build it up. And that's, I think that's a really freeing part about understanding like what's causing it. Yeah, and having that control over your flare ups.
Yeah, that was the big part for me. I think that was like the most important thing was like I felt like I was back in control again, where before it was like I could like I'd make a plan but then I'd cancel if my skin got really bad, or I would go to wherever we were going with so much anxiety that I couldn't hardly enjoy myself. We just didn't really do anything. I'd hang out with my family or people that I knew already knew my situation. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have to bring it up. And yeah, it just kind of got where we just really didn't do anything. And now I feel like I'm in control. Like if I know we have something coming up and I want my skin to be really clear, I eat the foods that I know won't irritate my skin, and I know that I can be in control of my situation, at least for now.
Yeah. And how has that changed your life, having a bit more control?
uh it's been really nice because, like I said, for so long, like I never wanted to go do anything, and I'm pretty social. um I'm a very social person. My husband's pretty social. And so that was really kind of hard on both of us and on our marriage, because he'd want to go, oh, let's go out to eat, which also that was a big part of my life, was like eating. My family, that's what we do when we get together. We eat, and my mom likes to grill and all sorts of things. And so that was just really hard, because it's like, oh, we're going to my parents' house for Sunday dinner, but everybody's going to eat all the food that I want to eat, but I'm going to eat over here.
Mhm.
But it was definitely really tough on, I feel like, on my husband and my relationship, because he would want to go out, like, oh, let's get a babysitter, let's go out. No, I don't want to. You just go out. I'll stay home with the kids. When I really, I didn't want to stay home with the kids either. But I didn't want to go out and be around people or whatever. And for some reason, I was always able to go to work. It didn't I don't know, nobody at work ever said anything. I think they were just like, oh, they knew not to, maybe.
Mm,
Um, and really, we were wearing masks during COVID, and so much of my face was covered up uh
mhm.
for the last 2 years anyways. And we've just recently, we don't wear masks anymore in school, and I thought I would have anxiety about it, and I don't. So
Perfect
uh,
timing.
I was like, right when I'm starting to look a little bit better, I'll take it off now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it definitely, I have a social life again, and I'm able to enjoy some drinks with friends if I want to, and go out to eat, or whatever. It's just been really nice to actually plan ahead and make plans to go do things, and to not have anxiety. Like, I remember my brother-in-law's wedding was last October, and I had so much anxiety just even leading up to it. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be in pictures. And it all worked out.
Yeah.
But I just remember I had anxiety, I feel like, months and months and months, like I was the bride or something, like I was just as nervous about their wedding as she was, I felt like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting too, because I remember when that was happening and feeling all that anxiety, and then you definitely connected a lot of that anxiety with your skin as well, flaring.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Which is a good thing when we heal eczema and we look at the big picture, we're looking at everything that's causing inflammation. And that's where, if you're just doing the shots or steroids or whatever, like it's okay, obviously, to do it as a fix while you heal. But then it's not going to be addressing the root cause of what's causing a lot of this. And I think your story is a really, really great example of that, because um, with the food sensitivities, that's like a cause of dysfunction, right? And it starts in the gut, and then like increases the toxic load and all these different flow and effects. Also, from taking antihistamines for a lifetime as well, and taking medications, all of that compounds. So when we start talking about food sensitivities, the gut, it's not just a remove food, it's not just heal the gut. We actually need to be thinking about, well, where is this gut dysfunction, right? And all of those like nutrient deficiencies and everything, and all the changes that you've done in your life. Well done. It's hard to implement all those, but that helps, right? And the level of inflammation that you get from just being stressed, which you had that direct correlation. So being able to have tools to get stressed out, but then come back down to baseline again, that's such a big game changer.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
well
I
done.
can feel myself a lot of times now, when I can feel myself getting stressed out. And like, I know sometimes in the moment I can stop and I can help myself to de-stress and know I need a minute. Sometimes I can't, but I definitely notice it more than before. I think before I just was always at that level constantly, like in overdrive, just constantly going.
So your baseline of normal was up here.
Yes, yeah, like
Yeah.
it never came down until it was time to sleep, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like I was always stressed out, you know. Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people. I mean, that's most people that start the program. And with eczema, because there is such a big emotional and mental connection, the brain skin, with eczema. So yeah, and that's a big thing. It's, it's not just about avoiding stress. Because again, if you're just avoiding all your triggers, there's going to be life events, right? Family passing, pregnancies, like, outside things that are happening in the world, but it's how we respond to it.
Right.
And I definitely want to congratulate you too, because when we do the weekly calls, there'd be lots happening, and there'd be like, you talk about your emotions and you'd write on your symptom diary. And then when you come on the call, you're just like, okay, I reflected and I understand that it's this. And you had a really good, yeah, like I was saying, kind of introspective reflection of what was happening. So I have to congratulate you for that.
The calls were definitely my saving grace. I feel like every week I knew, like, even if I'd had a bad week, I think they were on a Tuesday, maybe every Monday I knew I'd sit down and I'd do my symptom diary, and I wanted to be able to go on the call with something positive to say and feeling good instead of being like a Debbie Downer on the call. And so that always kind of helped turn my week around, because I wanted to be able to get on the call and have people go, "Oh, okay, good job," or whatever. I
That's a
needed
teacher in you.
that. I needed that. I needed that positive
Yeah.
praise.
Yeah.
So,
And that's like for people in the program or on the journey, even with life, right? Not even eczema, but having that mindset, right? Like where's the positive in this situation? Because you went through a lot. It was really, really challenging for you.
yeah,
So to deal with your skin and your health, and then also mom work and everything is a lot.
right.
So definitely have to reward that mindset that you had, which is a big part of it. Because if you come on always like the end of the world, this is awful, and always having the mentality, your body hears what your mind says. So
Mhm.
that's a big, big, big part of it.
Yeah,
So well done.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always, in the program, I always use I used quite a few times your symptom diary. Like the teacher in Kinzi, like you're very consistent, but you could literally see. I remember at one part, you're like, oh, it's going up, but there are going to be flares that go up. And so we have this graph of your symptoms. But again, it's around Christmas, but then come back down. Okay, stressful period, come back down. But yours was, I mean, it went up, there's ups and downs, but overall you could see that the slope going down, which is cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it was like this, but it was constantly going up at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so you had mentioned earlier, I just want to touch on, so we had the call. So you had the allergy shots and we had spoken months before you actually started. And so I just wanted to know what was happening in your head, because it might be other people might be in the same situation. What hesitations did you have? And then what led you to actually starting the program?
At first, I think it was okay. I found you on the internet. Like I said, I think you somehow popped up like on my ads on Facebook or something, or from me searching eczema symptoms and that kind of thing. And so at first I was like, is she for real, or am I going to pay her? And then I'm never going to hear from her again. And is it going to be a bad experience? And so I think I had to get past that. And when we had first spoke, I I was having issues with my eczema, but I also feel like it wasn't so bad that I felt like I really needed somebody else's help. I think I still thought, um, I'm smart, I'm educated, I have friends that can help me, that I can figure this out. I have a really good doctor. I have a friend that does the food sensitivity testing, and so I'm going to be able to do it myself. I'll research it, everything will be okay. So I think I was kind of at that point. I also had myself convinced that the allergy shots were the ticket. They were going to fix it. They fixed it when I was younger, according to my parents when I took them. I really don't have that much of a recollection of what it was like when I got them when I was younger, because I was like 4 or 5, I think, when I did allergy shots as a kid. But I think the biggest thing was, is she for real? it's the state.
Yeah.
Take my money and run. And I think too, like when I said something to my husband, he was like, like, oh, that's really like, are you sure? And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'm not there yet. Maybe we'll try the allergy shots and like instead. And then, like I said, everything just kept getting worse. And I kind of hit that rock bottom where I was just miserable all the time. I didn't think I was ever going to get better. Um, and so that was just when I was like, okay, I've got to do something. I've got to have somebody help me because I've tried everybody that's supposed to help me and nobody's been able to yet. So yeah. And I'm glad I did.
But yeah, it is a total, like, it's a normal response to have that because there's so much in the internet, and especially in the States, I've noticed a difference between Australians and Americans because there is a lot more that happens, right? So it's totally normal to have your guard up and whatnot. Um, but I think the biggest thing and kind of maybe turning point or maybe a good message for other people um, is don't just try and do it on your own, that
Yeah.
there is help because this is across the board, I would say a good percentage of people that start the program. They had thought, well, I can do this on my own. I should know how to. I think that there's this level of expectation that I should be able to take care of myself. I'm an adult. Or I can go to do things that worked before, or I can just go speak to doctors and yeah, all of that. So I think a big thing is that it's okay to ask for help, and probably, learn from Kinzi is don't wait. You don't have to wait until it gets to, you hit rock bottom and it gets to like the very, very extreme chronic 10 out of 10 rashes. Yeah. So, but that's usually when most people will have that kind of epiphany, or it's like, I need to change there. That's that little window of change. But if you could start the healing journey quicker, it doesn't have to be,
Right.
doesn't have to take so long and have so many ups and downs.
That's what I
Yeah.
wonder. I wonder, if I had joined the program before I wasted the money on my allergy shots and spent, 3 or 4 months going every week to get them and all of that, uh,
Mm.
would it have taken as long as it did to heal? Um, I've always kind of wondered that if I hadn't have been stubborn and had that like, oh no, I can fix it. I can do it myself, that attitude. But I think that's just how we are. I think that's how, like you said, we're adults and we think, oh, I can take care of myself. I can fix it. So
And like I say, always, the common personality trait of people with eczema are cares, and also wanting, like, they'll put their needs last. So it's like, oh, well, I have a family that I need to be supporting, and I have all these things that I need to be doing. Prioritizing and investing in my health isn't always a priority for people, and it's a common trait with people with eczema because they are just carers and making sure everybody else is okay. So definitely think that's a commonality as well. Yeah. Um, okay, so I guess now being on the other side, what are some words of wisdom? If somebody is still struggling with their skin, or maybe they're like for members that are in the program at the moment, what are some words of wisdom and I guess impactful aha moments from your journey?
um, I think the biggest thing is just to trust it, kind of trust the process. Because when I first started, I remember feeling impatient at first. You know what I mean? Like, okay, why hasn't it, like a month in? Okay, why haven't I seen a change? Or why don't I feel different? And it does take time. And even after, like you said, after your skin will get clear and then you'll have a flare up. And so it kind of is, that 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Um, it seems like every time I started something new, I'd have a little bit, of a backslide. So I did like the gut healing protocol and things got better. And then I think I started a new one and it had a little backslide. And so you just really had to trust in the process because I mean, what you're doing. You do, not me, you do. Uh, like
You do too now.
I know,
Yeah.
but not anybody else.
Yeah.
But like you really do. There is a method that you're doing, and you're weeding things out, and there is a certain order that you have to go in. You can't just jump in, because I think I wanted to do, when I first started, I wanted you to do everything all at once. Like I remember getting on the portal, and I just like hours, I just kept watching the videos, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do all these things, everything that it said, to do, I'm going to do it all in a week. And so I was just ready to feel better. But I think just taking it one step at a time and being very patient and trusting in it is probably the best. And the amount of time that I spend on myself now has changed so much. And so I think that has been my biggest takeaway. And I still don't spend like a ton of time on myself, but every morning that's like my non-negotiable. Like I have to have at least 10 minutes meditation or yoga or something, if not more. And I do that every single day, no matter what. I'll do that instead of fix my hair if I have to. But that is my, I have to do that.
Love it. And that's great. Having boundaries for yourself is
Yeah.
big. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that is impactful, just trusting the process. And that is common. I did that with my journey as well. I'm like, give it to me, do it all. I need to do everything. But when you can zoom out, and we had this conversation and have this conversation with everybody, how long has your body been in a state of dysfunction? In 1 month, it's not going to all change. So yeah, it is, but it is hard because you're doing all these things. So then you just naturally expect an outcome. But it does take time, especially when you're in a chronic state. If there's people with just mild eczema, it's different. But when it is in that chronic state, it does take time. And as you've learned, there's so many different factors that are playing, that are impacting your skin that, yeah. And then there's life as well. So you're managing so many different things. But yeah, it is a process, and you are going to get flare-ups when you start reintroducing, or things change in life or in your body, if you're in a sensitive state. But yeah, you were good on anchoring in on, okay, and looking at a graph. It was getting better. There is hope.
I remember the first time you showed me the graph, I was like, oh, I didn't know that was there. That's such a, like, I had to scroll down on my screen, and I never had. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like now I know where to look.
Yeah. I've put that as the main page now, since you said that. I was like, okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it is hard looking at the data too, when it's just numbers, and you're filling them in. So having that graph and that visual, okay, like where am I tracking? And it's a good tool to have. Like in life, you don't have to do it always, but if you ever get a flare up, you can go back to all these resources, and say, okay, and now you have the knowledge to be able to heal yourself. Okay, where is it coming from? Digestion, allergy, sleep, hormones, all of those things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Kinzi. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think this is going to be very impactful for people who are on the Dupixent journey. I do know there's a lot of people who've been on it and then stopped working or hasn't gotten results. So I think that just gives people hope that there is more that you can do. And also just trusting a process, right? There is a specific process, and it does take time. And I think, what was really inspiring and probably impactful for other members when going on the journey is being able to witness your journey too, and seeing all of your reflection points. And like you had so many different aha moments. So thank you for being very open in the program, and thank you for pushing against the resistance. Is this a fraud? And taking the chance, and you're on the other side. So it's beautiful.
You're not a fraud. You know it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely nervous.
Were you nervous at the beginning?
Well, no, not after not once I got started, but just that initial, like when I paid, I was like, oh.
What did I just do?
Like, oh, this is gonna be good. And it was wonderful.
Yeah, good. All right, Kinzi. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and congrats on your journey. Very proud of you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.